When Kobe and I decided to create a podcast and coined it the Father Son Podcast, most would feel this is a gimmick for the podcast, and that couldn't be further from the truth. From the day Kobe was born, I introduced him to video games. This was a way of life for me, as I can remember my father buying me the Odyssey home system, where the cellophane field that clung to the TV determined what game you were playing. Kobe's love for video games grew, as did the bond of a father and a son. When I introduced him to online play, his world opened to new heights. He learned quickly that the incredible gaming experience wasn't just something shared between a father and a son, but there was an entire world that shared his passion for gaming. Gaming was just part of his upbringing, as school or sports was. We always made arrangements that a video game experience was just an arm's length away, even when we went on vacation. As Kobe got older, our experience took us to the road, experiencing events like the Great E3 to more modern events like Summer Game Fest, the Xbox Experience, IGN, and PAX. Kobe graduated from college and now works in the video game industry on the Xbox team. So, as you can see, it was nothing but natural progression to now share our experience and love of the industry through our podcast. Now sit back and enjoy the ride.
And what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Father and Son Gaming Podcast here on a Wednesday. We're doing something a little bit different than usual. We are not here on our usual Monday time slot. That's because we thought it'd be great to do a Gamescom opening night live review and our own reactions to all of the games that were shown. So my name is Kobe, aka Kobe127. That is Kevin, aka Octane699. Dad, welcome aboard for a Wednesday stream. How you doing?
It's going to be different. We're going to see what we could do here, but pretty excited about the show, and even more excited that Gears comes out, this week?
Gears comes out in 8 days, or days. Six days, actually. 6 days. It is 2 days before the Metal Gear Solid Delta remake, so we're going to have two heavy-hitting remasters coming out back-to-back. And Gears of War Reloaded also comes out the same day as Helldivers 2 on Xbox, so it's going to be a very heavy week next week to end the August month. But before we continue into our actual review and reactions for Gamescom, I do want to let people know about our socials and our Discord. Please join our Discord. We are very active in there. We have a pretty good community going on, and you can come chat with us and talk to others about current gaming news, talking about the games that you've picked up recently, and so on. Dad, do you have anything else to say about the Discord?
Yeah, I think one of the things is you'll keep up with what we're doing. I think we put up there, again, to know about a Wednesday podcast that we're doing, just to get on there, ask us questions. We love to talk about our personal video game habits and collections and so forth. So join us. I'd love to talk to you. And again, share, like all of our socials. That's what helps us out.
100%. And other places that you can find us is on our socials. That's where we do a lot of announcements. We also post clips from the podcast if you want to get it in bite-sized formula. If you don't want to watch the full thing, we do pick some of the best parts of the podcast and put it out there for people to have bite-sized material. But I just want to say, on Instagram, we are at Active Reload Gaming. On YouTube, if you're watching it on YouTube, we are at Active Reload Gaming as well. Twitter and Twitch are the different ones. We are at Active Rel, and that is with an REL, Active Rel Gaming. And today we are unfortunately not streaming on TikTok as we did on Monday. We are running into some technical issues with Restream, so we're trying to figure that out along the way. Besides that, just going to go over a quick housekeeping once again from Monday. Obviously, today we are doing the Gamescom opening night live reviews / reactions, and then we're going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming. On August 25th, we're going to be going over, has the industry forgotten about older gamers? As my dad is pretty passionate about this topic, and whether or not the Souls-like games should even have a difficulty slider. September 1st, we're going to be doing something special, just like how we did last week when we went to Planet Retro Video Games and did a live podcast from a remote location. We're going to do the same thing, but this time from PAX West here in Seattle, Washington. So September 1st at the usual time, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, we will be live from PAX West, going over the show floor, the games that we were able to demo, and just talking about the event as a whole. Then on September 8th, we're going to be going over our remake / remasters good for the industry with our first ever reviews for the podcast for Gears of War Reloaded and Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. I think this is going to lend to a very interesting conversation, as I alluded to before, that we are hitting 2 heavy remasters / remakes back to back. And we can also go into the whole debate of what is a remaster versus a remake. Dad, do you have anything to say about any of these coming up?
No, I'm actually excited to do our first review. I think that's going to be a pretty stellar podcast.
Yeah. And with that, I do want to move into the topic of the show. Let's not wait any longer as we gotten all the important information out of the way. So Gamescom opening night live happened yesterday. This is what Gamescom is the biggest convention in the world for video games. E3 was the king of the United States, but no, everyone kind of forgets how big Gamescom really is. And every year they do their opening night live, which is their yearly showcase. Obviously, we have the summer season showcase that always happens. You have your press conferences from Xbox, Nintendo. You have the Summer Game Fest showcase. But 2 months later, we always have another big showcase, which is Opening Night Live. And that happened yesterday. We watched it. We digested all 2 hours of it. And we came here to talk about our most highlighted games from the showcase. But first, I want to ask you, Dad, before we even get into the games that we thought looked the best, what did you think of the show? And if you can give it a rating from 1 to 10 on the quality of the show, what you liked about it, the pacing, give me your rundown of what the show was.
Again, when you talk about giving a rundown or a rating of it, I have to be honest, and I compare it to what this year. I don't think it's fair to compare it to last year or past years or anything. So my comparison and where I'm getting my rating from is 100% looking at the Summer Game Fest, because I think that that's comparable. And I think it blew Summer Game Fest out of the water. I give this one an 8 out of 10. I thought that there was banger games going on here. I thought that there was games that we'll get into that I think is innovating or trying to innovate the industry, that it's not the same old story. So I was super excited about it. And I'm not just talking about AAA games. I'm talking all the way down to some smaller title games, and it's not the AAA bangers, but I give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I find that interesting because I'm on the opposite side of the fence here. If I were to give Opening Night Live a rating, I'm kind of in the 6 range for the show. I actually think Summer Game Fest was a better show overall, and the reason being is I really kind of felt this 2-hour runtime. Now, Summer Game Fest was also a 2-hour runtime, but for me, Opening Night Live, I kind of fit into a very specific kind of show, and I set my expectations correctly, and I think my expectations were met for what this show set out to be. There were highlights, but there are some banger games that happen, but that middle portion of the show really started to lose me for a little bit. I'm happy and I'm glad that a World of Tanks 2.0 advertisement shows up. It helps pay the bills. It helps these showcases even happen. But there was a lot of games of that caliber that really made the middle feel dragged out, in my opinion. I think they started really strong with the pacing, and then it hit a really big lull, and then they came back at the end with a few exciting announcements.
What's funny is I had the opposite effect. I've known of World of Tanks. It's been around for a while. And actually watching this one made me think, you know what, I would probably enjoy World of Tanks. So I had to flip-flop. And again, when I sit there and think of Silksong, they finally gave Silksong out. They finally gave this out. But I didn't mind the World of Tanks because it made me want to go play it.
And I find that interesting because World of Tanks for me is a game that really never even spoke to me. So, and this all comes down to realistically preference for the person. and different games speak to different people. So I find it interesting that actually World of Tanks 2.0 spoke to you. But yeah, I just think overall, I mean, production wise, the show went great. I think the way I even think the pre-show was actually really stellar. I think the pre-show had better pacing than the actual main show itself. I liked how quick and snappy it was with just game after game, and all of them of very different qualities, but each of them kind of brought something fresh to the forefront. Which one of the games we're going to be talking about in a little bit is actually from the pre-show. That was actually one of my standouts of the whole conference in itself. And
Hell,
I do know from like, well, go ahead.
I just got to say, P390 in the chat here agrees with me that World of Tanks looked pretty good. So I'm not the only one that saw it. So thank you, P3.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and chat, please let me know what you think about the show in its entirety. What games stood out to you? We can be going over the comments as it comes through. So that being said, like I said, the thing that I thought was interesting is the people who were actually on the show floor, like they streamed the pre-show to them. So like the pre-show, what I was saying, it was actually kind of important to the mass audience. But yeah, do you have any thing else to say about the show structure itself?
No, because to me, the show structure, Jeff Keighley, it's like anything else that he does, whether it's Summer Game Fest or the award show. The audience is set up. He brings out the stuff, and hopefully next year, Kobe and I and my wife will get the Gamescom. It's a bucket list, and it's coming quicker and quicker that we will get to Germany to see that.
Yeah, 100%. I am super excited to potentially go to Gamescom at some point. Like you said, it is a bucket list item. That and the Game Awards and Tokyo Game Show are the ones that we're really looking forward to at some time in the future for us to travel to. But with that, I want to start talking about the games themselves. And what we kind of thought stood out. And the first thing that you and I have written down is a game called Valor Mortis. So, Valor Mortis was the game that was actually in the pre show. And this game honestly looked really interesting, having this game set in a Napoleon Bonaparte era, this like super French looking kind of game. And what do you want to say about it first, Dad, before I start reading the description for the game itself?
First off, this was my favorite showing of the entire show. I actually went back and watched this trailer about 5 or 6 times. The thing I'm loving about it is it's a different era that we don't see every other game coming out with. And if you really watch through the gameplay, I love it. It has hints of BioShock in it. I just love the setting. The gameplay again looks pretty good. I know most of it's trailer stuff, but I am so super stoked about this one. This could be my most anticipated game coming out in 2026.
Well, I'm unfortunately going to burst your bubble a little bit here. I'm going to read the Steam description, and you might be thrown off. Valor Mortis is a first-person action Souls-like from the creators of Ghost Runner. Rise from death as a former soldier of Napoleon's army. Wield supernatural powers, battle horrifying monsters, and unravel a conspiracy that threatens all of humanity. And if you don't know what Ghost Runner is, Ghost Runner was a super hard kind of speedrunning game where essentially you are a Ghost Runner and you have a katana and you're running and you have only one hit. Where if you get hit by the enemy, you're dead and you have to restart the run. They're obviously doing a very different direction. This doesn't look as fast paced as Ghost Runner, but I find it very interesting that they're calling this a first person action Souls like. And I'm curious to see at what point what the qualification of a Souls like is, because when initially watching this, I did not get the Souls like genre from this kind of game. And maybe it's because they're having a parrying mechanic and a dodge. I'm not sure. But I mean, to me, this does not scream Souls like, but maybe the difficulty level on this thing is going to be through the roof.
Well, again, you know my feeling about Souls like. I think that term is thrown around so loosely, and I think people like to tag their games with Souls like because people, everything is Souls like and everybody's trying to be a Souls like. So I didn't get that out of this trailer at all. Even your description, I don't get that out of this trailer. I just have high hopes for this.
Yeah, I have high hopes too. And the other thing that they're saying on the Steam page here is each death is a chance to grow stronger. Master a combat system of parries, dashes, and visceral finishers across a variety of weapons. Channel your power to enhance attacks and unlock new supernatural abilities to inflict upon your enemies. To me, that this does sound like Dishonored in a sense. Like I know you were saying BioShock vibes, but to me, I'm getting heavy Dishonor vibes, but set in this Napoleon Bonaparte era. And I do want to say hello, lady. Thank you for joining the stream today. I know it's not our usual time, but happy to see you here. Let me know what you thought about Gamescom and if there's any games that spoke to you.
See,
But yeah,
I kind of get out of this a BioShock Life of P type put together. Now I know, Life of P was
Lies of P.
Liza P. I'm sorry, Liza P. was Souls like as well, but I kind of get that mechanic in this and in the Napoleon era with a hint of BioShock or Dishonored. I'll see Dishonored in this as well.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I am super excited for this. This game really just blew me away in the pre-show, just for how unique it looks. And I agree, we really don't see games set in this Napoleon Bonaparte era, and I'm excited to see what they do with it. I think the story might be pretty interesting because they're saying witness a compelling story where historical figures and realities intertwine with elements of horror and the supernatural. That just sounds awesome. Like this is going to be a throwback, and I don't know if you remember this game from the Xbox 360 called Darkest of Days, where you were going through different time periods with
I
like
do.
modern weaponry. Like,
Yes.
I know this looks very different than that, but that was like the last game that kind of I remember vividly being set in one of these kinds of eras. So I'm happy to see that we're actually going back and just experimenting with something pretty new. Do
And
you have anything?
you know that I like history, and I really, really like anytime they go back in the history. And if any dev or anybody's ever watching this, please somebody make a good Aztec or Inca, anything from the South American, Central America. I've been yearning for that. Now I know there's a couple out there that, some indies that tried to do it, but I'm talking even Assassin's Creed. I said it. I'd love to see Assassin's Creed go down to the South American vibe. I just love that era.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next game, I do want to say that on Steam you can currently request access to the playtest. So playtests are happening right now. You can head to the Steam page, request access, and potentially get in to try this game early on. A lady asks, will it only be first person? I believe so. They have not shown any third person gameplay at this time, so fully expecting a first person Souls like here. The next game that we had written down that both of us were pretty intrigued in is a game called Sword of Legends. Do you want to speak to this and why you threw this down on the notepad right away?
Well, again, when I saw this, it's kind of taking, and I'm going to say this a few times during this podcast. I think we are um, in the samurai era, in the sense that it was years ago it was vampires, and now it's and then it was zombies for a while. We are in the samurai era. So, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I love the samurai. I can't get enough of it.
Well, I
And
do want to
this
point out this is Chinese mythology, so
same, that
yeah.
same realm that you're looking at. But I think that's where I was going with it next, is that it's the Chinese mythology, that it's almost the counterpart to like Ghost of Tsushima. And this is what I'm looking at. Like it's almost the Chinese version of Ghost of Tsushima. And that's what really was compelling to me, that I would love to see the samurai coming into the Chinese realm here, and seeing that Tsushima going this way, if that
Well,
made sense.
it does make sense, but the thing is, from a Western audience that I didn't even know, but I'm looking here at the description. This is the Sword of Legends is actually an online Chinese MMO, and that came out in 2021. But this is a completely separate and different kind of game, and this is the first time that a game is releasing for Eastern audiences and Western audiences simultaneously. So this game is actually set in an already pre-existing world, but they're not doing an MMO for this one. This is a full single-player action video game that they are developing, and this is in a long-running series called Guijian. I'm definitely butchering that name, but this has been a long-running series apparently. So it's very cool to see that I think the one thing that we noticed from this Gamescom and just in the games industry in general, the Eastern games are making a huge splash in the Western audiences now. And I really think, Japanese games and JRPGs became popular in the West a long time ago, especially because of Final Fantasies, Dragon Quest, and the PlayStation 1 era. But we never saw a lot of love from Korean and Chinese developers. And I think we're starting to actually see that pivot here in the Western audiences. Where, for example, Black Myth Wukong, and we're going to get to the new Black Myth game that is coming out much later. We're seeing Wuchong Fallen Feather. We're seeing a game that was revealed at the Xbox Showcase back in June called Mudang Two Hearts, which is that kind of Splinter Cell-esque looking Metal Gear Solid game. And these are all games coming from realistically no-name studios that are just kind of building their first products in China and Korea. And I think it's super special to see this kind of attention come to the Western audiences and us, like the Western audiences, show them this kind of love. Do you have anything else to say on?
No,
Sword
I
of
would
Legends?
agree with that. I 100% agree with that, and I like that we're starting to see and get the influence from other places other than the European, the Japanese, and the American. I like that we're really starting to get influences from the rest of the world here.
Yeah, and I just want to say for people who are watching the gameplay but also want a audio description, Sword of Legends will take on the role of Sipan, an underworld enforcer who returns to the world of the living to shepherd reluctant souls into the next life where they belong. Naturally, this is typically not a smooth, conversation driven process, and thus most of your job will be throwing down with supernatural horrors, using mystical techniques, divine artifacts, and powerful weapons to convince them it's time to move on. This sounds awesome. This sounds right up my alley. I am super excited. I think it's going to be kind of a Souls-like from what I'm looking at, just in terms of the actual action gameplay we're seeing. But it could also be taking on something like Phantom Blade Zero, which is not a Souls-like, but more of an action game, and they might have difficulty sliders. There's still a lot of details to be had with Sword of Legends, but I'm very much looking forward to this game.
There you go with the Souls-like again. Everybody wants to tag the Souls-like.
Well,
I told you I'm going to go copyright that. So every time somebody says Souls-like, I get paid because I think it's thrown around way too much.
Yeah. I just think, there should have been a bet between us for Gamescom, which is over or under how many Souls-likes are going to pop up in the actual into the actual game. In the YouTube, Touchy Feely says, "Hey y'all, I finally found time to visit again. Welcome back. Thank you for joining on a weird time. We're not used to doing this on a Wednesday, but we're happy to be here." So the next game I want to start moving on to is actually one that we're both very excited for and probably might be both our games of the show. And that is Lego Batman by TT Games. I am a huge Lego video game fan. I think most of the Lego video games have been pretty stellar. They're always super fun. But Lego Batman has honestly surprised me the most. And this one is called Legacy of the Dark Knight. And I want to pass it off to you, Dad, first. What do you think of Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight?
I was super stoked to see this because I'm going to be honest, I don't think there's been a Lego game released that I didn't play. And some of them hit, some of them didn't. But man, you do the Dark Knight, one of my favorite, movie Batman series. And if there was audio that you were watching in this, hearing Bane and seeing that whole scene, just I'm so stoked about it because I will play the Lego series. To me, is I love to put a Lego game in, especially going to play Batman, when I just want to turn my mind off. Like I just want to sit, have, silly fun, not worry about anything. You're not doing super hard bosses. You're not doing super hard puzzles. And you just have fun with it. That's what I love about the Legos. And here I'm an adult and people say, well, geez, you're playing the Lego game. And I'm like, then you've never played a Lego game because the humor behind it and the way that they do everything, Lego, it's just an incredible experience.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely brilliant that they're going through all of the Batman movies, or at least they're taking inspiration from each Batman movie, because the clip we're seeing right here is from The Batman with Robert Pattinson as he's taking the Batmobile chasing the Penguin down the road. We saw clips of Heath Ledger's Joker. We're going to see a clip of Tom Hardy's Bane. This is going to be super fun. And I think the real funny thing about this game is fans like myself have been begging for another Batman Arkham game for the longest time. The last Arkham game to come out was in 2015 with Arkham Knight. And this game is actually delivering on that. We're getting Arkham-like combat in a Lego Batman video game. We're getting a fully drivable Batmobile open world. You even see the Bat Gel that was in the Arkham game itself. And we're also seeing a whole bunch of cool different skins for the Batman, like the Arkham games did. Yeah, this looks just like so much fun to be had. And I agree. This is a game that I want to go and turn my brain off on. The thing that I really like to see is there's going to be 3 difficulties for this game. There's a classic Lego game. There's going to be a normal difficulty called the Caped Crusader. Then there's going to be the Dark Knight, and they actually have dynamicness to the difficulty. Like you're going to get more heavier like enemies, more engaging combat, or if you just want that classic Lego, I'm going to punch, have the studs pop up. You can have that experience, but this seems like it's going to be a super customizable Lego Batman experience. We are having a couple people pop off in the chat. Lady saying definitely getting Lego Batman, and asks if it's going to be co-op. And from previews that I've heard, it is going to be 2-player local co-op, but it will not be online co-op. So if you have someone near and dear close to you, you can definitely play this game locally.
And I love couch co-op.
Yeah, couch co-op needs to make a huge comeback. That has been missing from games for such a long time. Shemplu says, it's just a time of leisure. I find myself being pulled towards these kinds of games nowadays. Everything seems to be about farming, achievements, grinding over and over again. Do you have any comment towards that? As I feel like you kind of align with that sentiment too.
Yeah, but on the flip side, farming achievements, that's not a negative thing to me. I love doing achievements, but you're right. There is a grind in most of it, and that's why I do like the Lego games, because you just shut off. You have a couple hours. You just want to sit. You don't want to think about anything, and it's what gaming is for relaxing. Because I think there's so many games nowadays that I'm white knuckling, and my controllers. You could hear it start to stress crack because I'm such white knuckled. I'm doing so many white knuckled and sweaty games that I just like to sit back and chill sometimes. And this is one of them.
And then Michael Eloise says, now that's a game I can play with the kids and have tons of family fun. We all love Legos, and who doesn't love Batman? Very excited to see this new game coming. Fully agree. I mean, every Lego game has always been a joy. And, the last big Lego game to come out was Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. And I had tons of fun with that. I'm 25 years old. I'm still going to go play a Lego game. They're just pure fun. And, it's a good nostalgia ride too, because they always do a lot of fan service for the IP that they're doing. Do you have anything else to say about Batman?
Yeah, I'll leave it at this, that to me, the Lego games are like, if anybody's old enough in the chat to know what Bugs Bunny and all that were, back then, those cartoons were made for kids, but there was that undertone humor that was made for the adults. And I think that's the way Lego Batman is, that you can have your kid pick it up and play it, and they don't, it's just a Lego game to them. But an adult playing it, I think there's some undertone adult humor in there that kids would never get. And I think that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next game, Shemplu asks, how's Mafia going? Not sure if you mentioned how your progress is going. Came in late. We talked about Mafia a little bit on Monday, and at that point, I was about 4 hours into the game. But since Monday, I am now on Chapter 9 out of 14. I have put 8 hours into the game, and my opinion has definitely begun to change quite a bit. I think with Mafia: The Old Country, the way it started was super slow. Like I said on Monday, it took 3 hours to even shoot a gun for the first time. And that is pretty crazy for a Mafia game. And a lot of the fights have been these knife fights, and they're not the most well thought out mechanic in the game, but it's serviceable. But that being said, the game has immensely picked up since my like chapter 4 or 5. I think like once you hit that 4-ish hour mark, the game really starts to become more of a third person shooter. And I think there's a lot more exciting moments into it. And I also really like what they're doing, because you're actually starting to see where I'm at, like the birth of the old mafia, what it's like in early 1900s Italy, and really seeing this story unfold. And I'm a sucker for a good like forbidden anything story, and this is a forbidden love Romeo Juliet story as well. And I think they're actually writing it pretty well. I buy the characters, I buy the motivations. I'm starting to have a lot of fun with it, and I'm find myself wanting to return to Mafia. So that's my take. I don't think my
It
dad has started it
it
yet.
it came out a week ago. I put it in and loaded it into the Xbox, and I think it's still there. So I just haven't had time.
But with that, I am going to start moving on to the next game that we wanted to talk about from the show. And this game was actually you and I's, I think, game of the year last year. And this is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, but this is the DLC, The Order of the Giants. Indiana Jones, The Great Circle was an incredible video game. It was such a good homage to the movies itself. Even though it's not Harrison Ford voicing Indy, my God, Troy Baker did an incredible job just nailing Harrison Ford's likeness and persona. And this game is more of an immersive sim. You really feel like Indiana Jones. You really feel like you're solving the puzzles and you're doing kind of like the slapstick action comedy that Indiana Jones is known for. And I think the DLC is just going to continue to deliver on that. And I'm really excited to see what the DLC provides because I think the original story that the Great Circle provided fit better into the Indiana Jones universe than the last two movies have with Crystal Skull and the Dial of Destiny. What do you think about this one, Dad?
Yes, I 100% agree with what you just said there. And if you haven't played this, and I know it kind of sounds a little cliche, but it's not. I have never played a game that felt more like you were actually playing a movie
100%.
than this. And I know that sounds like, come on, Kevin, every game's like playing a movie. No, if you have not played this, it truly feels like you are. If you're an Indiana Jones fan, even remotely, and you did not play this, you're doing a disservice to yourself because it is the most visceral experience of almost playing a movie than I've ever played before. And I agree. Like, I just feel that this is it's just gonna continue with what, because they fine tune that formula. So I can't imagine that they're going to change that formula. It's just continuing the story. So I'm super excited about this.
And even going back to, like, you know, some people in the chat said they have kids that they would like to play games with. Honestly, show your kids Indiana Jones if they're of age and then go play the game with them. Like, I think this is that kind of experience that anyone could enjoy it, especially if you like. I don't even think you need to like the movie. It is just a great video game. And I think this would sell you on watching the movies. But yeah, if you're a fan of any of the Indiana Jones movies, this game is just a joy to be had. And the thing that I do want to point out here is this is the first Xbox Bethesda title for the Switch 2. I think that is huge, and I think we're going to start seeing more Bethesda titles kind of shift their way over to the Switch 2. And, you know, full disclosure, I work at Xbox. None of my opinions match the company, and I am not saying anything that I do know. But I do feel like from rumors, we're going to see Starfield next go to Switch 2. I think we're going to see the transition to PS5 and Switch 2 probably within the next year. But yeah, super happy to see that Xbox is finally starting to get some of their IP onto the Switch 2. And having Indiana Jones on the go will be pretty great. Do you have anything else to say about Indy, Dad?
Nope, I'm just can't wait for this. This is going to be one great DLC.
Yeah. Now, shifting gears to something that's completely, totally different than the last two games that we went over, and we talked about this on our Most Anticipated Games podcast 2 weeks ago, Silent Hill F. Silent Hill F continues to look like to be an incredible horror experience. They're starting to announce the English voice cast for the game at Gamescom. So there's going to be two dialogue options, fully in Japanese or fully dubbed in English. So they're having support for both languages. But yeah, I think the gameplay, the setting that they're doing here, the premise set in 1960s Japan, I'm all over this. Silent Hill has been gone for such a long time. And even I was so heartbroken when Kojima's Silent Hills game got canceled. So if Konami can land this, if they can bring back the Silent Hill franchise, because Silent Hill has been in a very much a weird spot for so many years. Like, the last game to really come out was on the 360 PS3 era of video games. So yeah, what do you think about this one? I think this just looks great.
Well, anybody that follows me on Discord knows that I am in a weird horror, phase right now that I can't get my hands on enough horror games. And I agree. This setting in Japan, taking it in a total different avenue of what the last, and it's almost like a reboot of the series in a different view, which I equated it to The Walking Dead. Anybody that watched The Walking Dead They showed it in one, and then they did another series from New York, and then they did another series, but it's all within the same time frame. That's what I'm hoping is here, that it somewhat ties into the entire story of Silent Hill, that I don't know that we'll know till we get through it, to be honest with you, if there's some type of tie-in with it. But yeah, the Kojima, that was what, PT?
PT.
Yeah, I really wish they would have made that, because it was what, a 2-hour demo. Is that
Yeah, PT is still regarded, and I think is one of the best horror video games of all time for only being a demo. And yeah, I think Kojima paired with Guillermo del Toro making a Silent Hill game was a match made in heaven.
yes?
Guillermo del Toro has made some of the most visceral looking creatures of all time, and making that into a Silent Hill game was a no brainer. But if the whole cancellation and debacle never happened, would we have ever gotten Death Stranding? I think that's a whole what if scenario that would be pretty interesting, and I'm happy we got Death Stranding. But with Silent Hill, the last thing I'll say about it is this is the first game in the series to not use guns. It's going to be purely melee focused. So I'm super curious to see how this is going to play. And you were talking about if it's going to even connect into the larger Silent Hill story. I think it is, because for those who have played Silent Hill, this is where it differs from Resident Evil. Silent Hill is more about the mentality and the psychological horror. So is it that Silent Hill is an actual location, or is it just stuff that's going on in your mind? I think this is going to answer it, because a lot of the other games went to Silent Hill. This is going to be one of the first times, from my understanding, that this is not in the traditional Silent Hill that we know of. So I think we're going to get a lot of answers to questions that fans have had for a long time with this entry.
And everybody wants to know what F is.
Yeah, I assume we're gonna find out at some point. But with that, I'm gonna start shifting on to another horror game that we talked about 2 weeks ago. But this game continues to just surprise me every time I see it, and this is Chronos: The New Dawn. Last time I went in depth about Chronos: The New Dawn, but this time, Dad, you looked to be even more surprised than I was seeing this full gameplay demo. Tell me about it.
I did, and again, as you are, as well as I am, we're both Dead Space fans. Like, this really, I thought, leaned into that Death Space esque type horror game here, and when I'm watching what it actually is here, and they did more gameplay this time than ever, I love the setting. I'm already invested in the character. I love the horror, mutated zombie type people there. I just think that this is going to be a home run, and this is the one that's supposed to be set in
It
Poland,
is.
right?
It is set in Poland. It is made by Bluebird Team. Thinking of Silent Hill, they're the team that did Silent Hill 2 remake. They've also made the Medium and Layers of Fear. So they have been around the horror block for a long time, and this is they're a new original IP that they are doing. They haven't done an original IP since before Silent Hill 2 remake with the Medium. So I'm glad to see that they're experimenting. Silent Hill 2 Remake was one of their first games to actually introduce combat, and I thought they did combat really well. To see them kind of take the next evolution with what their horror games are, and going for this cosmic horror set in Poland after like this nuclear attack went off, you are a traveler, you're going to see what happened. You are following these stories. There's been past travelers that have gone before you, and now you are trying to chase down, see what is actually happening, what is creating these horrors. Yeah, I think this game, everything looks to be a home run, especially for me. I think before this, we had the Callisto Protocol, and that was kind of a miss. It did not give me the Dead Space vibes I was truly anticipating. It was an okay game, don't get me wrong, but it really fell flat in a lot of areas. I think this one is doing something interesting because the enemies themselves can fuse with other enemies. So if you don't burn the body as it's down, it will start to fuse with nearby creatures and it starts to level up. So I think it's going to create these really tense situations. And then if you don't burn the creature in time, it's going to create some really good cat and mouse chase sequences. So yeah, I'm just super excited for Chronos: The New Dawn. I think everything seen here just looks to be great. Visual fidelity looks great. The concept looks great. And I think the gameplay looks to be fire.
I am super stoked as well. I can't wait for this one.
Yeah. And before we move on to our next game, I would like to tell you about Active Reload Gaming through our quick 20-second sponsor.
Got games you don't play anymore? Turn that collection into cash at ActiveReloadGaming.com. It's fast, it's easy, and you get paid quick. Or if you are looking to buy, check us out on eBay or scroll through our Games by console. Find us at ActiveReloadGaming.com.
And we are back. And we're going to stay in the horror realm for just a little bit more. And I want to start bringing up Resident Evil Requiem, the newest entry into the Resident Evil series. This is the next mainline game after Resident Evil Village. So before I go into it, I have a little bit more context to Resident Evil Requiem than you, Dad, because back in June at Summer Game Fest, I actually got a behind the closed doors demo of this game. And this gameplay footage that we're seeing here is pretty much what I got to see and go hands-on with. I would like to hear about your opinions of Resident Evil first, because this is the first time that this gameplay that I saw 2 months ago is being shown to the public.
Yeah, I'm an RE fan. I love it. I was really thrown back at the angle that they're taking with this, because it's not part of the normal, from my perspective, Resident Evil look at it. So I'm going in this almost with a blind eye. I don't have any preconceived notions. I'm going in with an open mind, and I'm really stoked to see how this is all going to play out as you watch some of the trailer here, because this was first that I was seeing a lot of it. That it's I don't even know how to say where and when it's actually set, but I'm pretty excited to play this.
Yeah, so I can give a little bit of context into this from what I've seen. So the current gameplay footage we are seeing is set in a hospital. The overall game is going to be set in Raccoon City, and this is going to be taking place after Resident Evil 2 Remake and RE2. Raccoon City has been nuked. A nuclear bomb went off. They tried to kill the virus, but you are going back to Raccoon City. And the demo we're seeing here is Grace Ashcroft, who is the daughter of Ashley Ashcroft. And what this game is doing, Capcom says they are trying to take Resident Evil in a bold new direction. And I think you're starting to see that a little bit here. First off, what we saw way back then in the first part of the trailer, the creature known, I think people online are calling it Big Mama, one of the most horrifying creatures I have seen in the Resident Evil franchise. And this thing is going to be stalking you. It is one of the most visceral, grotesque-looking creatures that I have seen. And what they're actually doing with the AI is pretty dynamic. So the way this whole monster works to begin with, I'm going to start fast-forwarding just a little bit to maybe some of the chase sequences here. So let's go to the first-person gameplay. Also, this game can be played entirely in first-person and third-person. They're giving the option to the player, and you get different animations for both. And I think it's pretty interesting how the third person camera actually works and operates. But with Resident Evil Requiem, the Big Mama creature is actually pretty dynamic and learns to how you play the game. So there is first off, the creature hates light. So what this game and this demo is showing is it wants you to use your environment and create these light sources to kind of scare away the monster, because it just doesn't like it. So I like this kind of environmental puzzle solving that Resident Evil is usually known for, but actually using it as a weapon, I think is pretty cool. And the entire demo, you never get a gun. From all the footage that we've seen, there's no guns yet in this game. There's a lighter and an empty bottle and some med injectors. So they are really leaning in on the full horror aspect here, and I am super down for it. But yeah, so what I saw from the demo and Summer Game Fest as well is exactly what you're seeing. And it's more of a slow-paced horror burn right now, and this creature is consistently following you. And as I said, it learns how you play. In some of the clips that I've been seeing, like if you are running away and keeping distance from it, and it goes into like this area with a whole bunch of tables, the Big Mama creature will take the table and like just throw it at you and start to damage you. So it's really making you kind of think on your feet with how you want to approach these situations. That being said, the real scary part, this thing can crawl in the ceiling. It will make holes, and you'll hear like the footsteps going above you, and it's constantly just stalking you this entire time. I think while you can't hear it here, I encourage you to go watch one of these trailers. The sound design for this game is absolutely horrifying. I am super excited for Resident Evil Requiem. I still don't think this is. I think there's more than meets the eye for this game. I think they're really hiding a lot of what Requiem truly is. I think you're going to see Leon Kennedy at some point. I think he's going to be one of the main protagonists. I don't buy that this is fully going to be the game itself, because they're really being quiet about what comes after this.
So is this going to be Outlast-esque in
From
the
what,
sense
yeah.
that you're, instead of a video camera, you're with a lighter and someone's chasing you throughout the entire?
100%. At least this opening section in the hospital, you are definitely going to be having mostly Outlast vibes. And I want to point out that chat, Bombay says, can't wait for this game. And also the demo reminds them of the RE7 house demo. 100%. And we all know that that house demo was also a little bit misleading. There was more to meet the eye than what that demo initially showed for Resident Evil 7. And I think RE7 is the best entry in the franchise. I am so excited for Requiem. I think this is going to be doing something very interesting with the Resident Evil franchise. And I think this is going to be one of the scariest games to come out in a long time.
What's funny is, and it's like I said, it's Outlast-esque. When I first started playing Outlast, I'm like, man, this is dumb. I don't want to play it because I can't shoot. There's no melee. There's nothing in it. And I'm like, this just isn't going to work. And it ended up being one of my favorite horror games, so it does put a different spin on it when you cannot, hit things and you got to use the environment and you hear the things in the wall. It really flips you out.
Yeah. Shampoo says it's the season of horror games. Octane, you should be happy. Yeah, we have so many horror games coming out, even in the next month with Chronos, Silent Hill F. We have many others coming out too.
And I have a stack of backlog that when Kobe and I were out in Seattle doing our 15 retro game store tour, I must have bought every old horror game and newer horror game out there. So yes, I got a laundry list of horror to play.
100%. Do you have anything else to say about Resident Evil Requiem?
Nope. I agree with Bombay. I can't wait for this.
Yeah. So the next game I want to move on to, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier when we were talking about Story of Legends, is the new Black Myth game, Black Myth Zhong Kui. Black Myth Wukong released in 2024 or 2023. I forget the exact date, but Black Myth Wukong was a game that came from Game Science, a Chinese developer, and they made this super cool action game where they tap into Chinese mythology and tell a story around that. It's the best way I can explain Wukong. It was very similar to how God of War does it, where you take Greek mythology, then Norse mythology, and tell compelling stories with it. Wukong was a great action game, one of the best visual presentations that I've seen in gaming in recent time. If you haven't seen any of the visual presentation of Wukong and what it looks like, that game shows how Unreal 5 can be. That game is absolutely stunning. But to see Game Science go from Wukong to a completely new part of Chinese mythology with Zhuang Kui, a new god, I'm really liking what they're doing with the franchise. They're keeping the Black Myth title, but they're using different gods of Chinese mythology to tell new stories. Dad, what do you think about this angle?
Yeah, and it's almost like what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast here is I like that they're doing different mythologies. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't know a lot about Chinese mythology, and I'm eager to learn because we've all grown up with the Japanese mythology. We see a lot of that stuff in games and so forth. So I am more intrigued to play this. Not so much for all the visceral stuff that you said and everything. I'm more intrigued to play it just to kind of learn the Chinese mythology, because as we said before and you established, I like history. So that's what's exciting to me about it. And I've never played Wukong either.
Yeah, no, and I think the cool thing what Game Science is doing is people have discovered that there's a whole bunch of trademarks that they made last year, and it's beyond Wukong and Zhang Kui. They have 6 games in the pipeline that they are planning of all different parts of Chinese mythology. And being that, these games are becoming popular in the West, I think it's going to be a great learning experience for people to learn about these stories. Because through Wukong, I learned about how powerful Wukong is, as a god, the monkey god. He is a very compelling character. And I think it's based off of a book called Journey to the West, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah, Journey to the West is a popular book and explains a lot of these mythologies. So being that they're still kind of keeping within the journey to the West realm, but also touching on different aspects, I'm fully in on this. I don't have much more else to say. They did say that this game is there's not even a folder for it yet. They are just starting development on it, just starting conceptual designs, but they have this thing that every year on August 20th, they want to announce something or release something. So they wanted to keep with the pattern, and they announced Zhang Kui to the world at Gamescom.
Well, just look how stunning those characters look and everything else. I mean, it just looks incredible.
100%. A couple of people in chat, Touchy Feely said, Octane, you need to stop doing streams to get back to your backlog.
Well, what's happening, Touchy, is we're getting a lot of people submitting games and so forth on our website to sell to me, and I'm doing a lot of cleaning and relisting and everything else. So that's what's been tying me up. But thank you, everybody that's been selling their games on our website. We greatly appreciate that.
And Shem Plus says never played Wukong. I would just, even if it's not your kind of game, I highly recommend just going to watch a couple hours of the gameplay video. I think you will be blown away by the presentation and what that game does. Do you have anything else to say on Zhang Kui?
I do not. I'm excited to learn more about the Chinese mythology.
The next game I want to bring up is another, I think, horror game from what it looks like. And this game is called Routine. Routine seems to be a sci-fi horror game where you play as this kind of astronaut-looking creature, and there's these horrific robot creatures that are chasing you. And I really like how this game has this VHS aesthetic. Dad, do you have anything to say about Routine as I pull up the description for the audience?
Actually, yes. I watched this, and it did not speak to me. This is one of the games that I know it's horror, and I'm sitting here saying horror, but there's just something about it that it felt to me like a cheap Dead Space, like a knockoff Dead Space, and it didn't speak to me.
Interesting. So I want to quick over an overview about the game because Routine is a smaller title. Not many people might know about it or what it even is, and this trailer doesn't say as much. Routine is a first-person sci-fi horror title set on an abandoned lunar base designed around an 80s vision of the future. Curious exploration turns into a need for survival when a lunar base goes completely quiet. Searching for answers puts you face to face with an enemy who is certain the main threat is you. Discoveries lead to deeper unknowns, and the only way to go is forward. And you roam through contrasting sectors of the lunar base, from abandoned malls to deteriorating living quarters. I think the thing that speaks to me about this game is the aesthetic. I really like that 80s VHS aesthetic that is overlaid on this game. I really like the visual design of it and how it's that retro futurism that they're doing. And yeah, like this to me looks like, it has like a Stranger Things vibe, even though it's nowhere near it, but in terms of like that 80s feel. And this just feels like an 80s horror movie come to life in the modern age. I don't know what speaks to me about this, but I think, you throw horror, you throw sci-fi together, I'm going to be there. And it looks pretty interesting to me. Now, this game, I think I have the most trepidation with, just because we haven't seen as much. There's only been maybe like 5 minutes of gameplay out there max. There's still a lot to be had. It does come out late Q4 2025, as they're saying on their website. So yeah, this game can go either way, but I'm holding out hope for it. I do have hope that this can turn around and be something pretty special.
If they would take the robots or the mechs out and put in, biological aliens of some sort, I would be all in.
Yeah, Shemplu says, agree, aesthetic looks very appealing. And I think that's what's drawing me to this game. It's on the Steam page. You can check it out. It is produced by Raw Fury. Raw Fury is a publisher that has made many smaller titles, but their most recent game was Blueprints that they published. And they've also had a lot of like 80s retro aesthetic first-person shooters. So I have hope for this one. The next game I want to move on to is another one that I actually got to see at Summer Game Fest in June, and they're releasing the gameplay footage from it. And this is Onimusha: Way of the Swords. Onimusha is a long-running franchise from Capcom, and it had lied dormant for quite a bit of time, but they're bringing it back with a new installment in 2026. And this is running in the Resident Evil engine, so the same engine that's powering the new Resident Evil and also powered Monster Hunter Wilds is powering this this game. And this game it absolutely speaks to me. The action that is on display here looks awesome. Do you have anything to say about that?
Again, this one didn't speak that much to me, and it kind of reminded me of just a hack and slash. And I liked some of the characters that we see here, but again, to me, the way I look at this is there's so many good games coming out. Would I find time to play this? Probably not. And I'm just being honest. If I had nothing to play, yes, this would be one I'd definitely pop in and play it. But it just, again, didn't speak to me. It was more hack and slash than anything.
Yeah, and I think, I've been saying I want the hack and slash genre to make a comeback, and I see Shemplu saying more horror games, roll his eyes. This isn't necessarily horror. Yeah, the creatures do look kind of horrifying, but this is a straight up action hack and slash video game where a lot of the enemies are more flamboyant. It's not seen in this trailer, but some of the bosses in this game are super flamboyant, where you have like these very over the top characters coming down just absolutely and part of my language, talking shit to you the entire time. Like, that's what this game is. It's kind of goofy. The dialogue is very over the top, very 80s aesthetic, and the gameplay here doesn't really show that. But yeah, I've been a pioneer. I've been saying that the hack and slash genre needs to come back for the longest time. I think so. As much as I love the Souls-like genre, it has begun to oversaturate the market. And games like Ninja Gaiden 4, Onimusha coming out, I'm glad that there is a renaissance for this kind of game. And like I said, I was able to see this at Summer Game Fest. I think the combat looks very slick. It's very fluid. The way that they interact with the environment, the gore that is on display, like, this game is very gory. You are absolutely hacking off limbs. You're hacking through bodies. And I really like the premise. I like the setting. I just think it looks super fun. And I'm all here for that hack and slash genre. And Bombay says a new Onimusha gives me hope of another DMC. Fully agree. Devil May Cry 5 was an awesome game. Another one that is just super over the top and is ridiculous, but I absolutely love it. So yeah, I think if this game does successful, I really hope that Capcom returns to Devil May Cry and gives us a 6th entry. But I assume you have nothing else to say about this one?
Nope, same thing. If I have nothing to play, I'd absolutely play this.
The next game I want to talk about, we're on our final two here, is Outlaws Remaster. Outlaws Remaster, so this is being remade by Night Dive Studios. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Night Dive Studios. Night Dive has been going back, and we'll have a conversation about this in a couple weeks, but they've been remastering a whole bunch of older games. They're known for the System Shock remake, System Shock 2 remastered. They just released The Thing remastered this year. They have been killing it in the remastered game and bringing a lot of these older titles to the forefront. Outlaws is a game that was made by LucasArts. LucasArts is a long gone studio. I wish they were still around. Made some of the coolest video games way back in the day. And I wish they were still a thing. But unfortunately, after all the Lucasfilm stuff, LucasArts got shut down and they are no longer with us. I wasn't familiar with Outlaws as a game prior to this remaster. And I love any game that plays like old school Doom. Give me a boomer shooter. I'm all there for it. And this being set in the Wild West in a Doom skin, I think this just looks like pure fun. What do you think about this one, Dad?
That's exactly what I was going to say. The boomer shooter, it's Cowboy Doom, but I like these two. There's, as I said about the Lego games, there's times I like to throw my retro consoles on, go back to the simpler times, the simpler graphics, and play things like this. So I'm with you. I love that they're going back deep into the remakes or remasters of these and porting them forward. So 100% I would play this. I'm looking forward to it. I love the art style in it. I love the way that it plays. I'm super stoked about this.
Yeah, 100%. I just think it looks like a joy to be had. Shemplu says, LucasArts made my favorite game of all time, Star Wars Galaxies, I think as publisher only. Sony Online Entertainment was the developer. Yeah, LucasArts has just been known for so many banger titles. And, I'll ask you a question as we're kind of in this Night Dive realm. Is there any older games of this like style, or even 360 era, maybe OG Xbox era, do you wish Night Dive would go remaster, tune it up a little bit, and bring it back to the modern age?
Well, my big thing is I always said BioShock, and we all know BioShock is back in the news again, with Rod Ferguson, being
Which,
hired.
by the way, BioShock 1 remake was canceled. That was a
Oh,
project, and they canceled it.
yeah. Well, that whole group that they put together kind of got disbanded and fell apart. And now hearing that Rod Ferguson is pulled in, I'm hoping that it puts the new BioShock back on track and they start doing that. I'm a BioShock fan. I love that. So I've always said to bring back a BioShock. And, I know they say it's happening, but until it's in my, console and I'm playing it with a controller, that's my biggest thing. I always said I wish people would bring back or remake for the newer ports.
Yeah. Before I hit this comment, the last thing I will say about Outlaws Remastered, Night Dive also did a remastered of Star Wars Dark Forces, which is the OG Doom style Star Wars game. And that remaster was absolutely brilliant. I think, for that old of a game, they really kept the integrity, but just made it feel modern with dual stick controls. Yeah. I'm excited. Cowboys, LucasArts, Doom style, and these fun little cartoon cutscenes. Yeah, I'm all for it. And Bombay says, to go back to an episode a few weeks ago, I hope they don't include a steelbook with this game that can't even hold the game. I agree, but with a lot of these Night Dive releases, they have been limited run games releases. So you can expect the disc, but you can expect the game to also be a limited run. So you're going to have to buy it before it goes away. So with that, the last game that I want to bring up, and this is something that's totally different and may speak to some of our audience, may not speak to some of our audience, is Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War 4. This is the new entry into the long-standing Warhammer 40k Dawn of War franchise. The Dawn of War is their RTS game. Before I go into it, do you have anything to say about this one?
I'm pretty stoked about anything Warhammer. I'm a fan of the. I'm not so much a fan of the game, the board game Warhammer, but I am a fan of the video game, series. So I'm looking forward to this.
100%. I in the same boat as you. I've never gone into the actual tabletop game itself, but I love Warhammer as a universe, and the video games that they release have all been of pretty good quality. I mean, Space Marine 2 last year was an incredible experience, but my buddies and I, we have been looking for a good RTS game for a long time. Growing up, I played a lot of Command and Conquer 3. That was like my main RTS that I really sunk my teeth into. And seeing Dawn of War 4 and hearing the love that Dawn of War has as a franchise, and I'm going to read the Steam description here. Return to the RTS series roots with deeply satisfying strategy gameplay. Take command of 4 unique Warhammer 40k factions, including the Adeptus Mechanicus in their series debut. Fight through 70 plus epic campaign missions, as well as the replayable Last Stand, Skirmish, and multiplayer modes. Seeing this gameplay, seeing that it's free build where you can place your structures anywhere, you're controlling these massive armies that are just battling each other out. I haven't played an RTS in a long time, but I am super excited to try to sink my teeth into this one and actually just start my Dawn of War journey. I think I might go pick up the remastered for the first one on Steam. Do want to say in the comments, Shemplu says, Octane is going to hate me. I never can get into these games that have that huge armor thing going on. Gears, Warhammer, and more recently, the recent Dooms. Don't know why, can't explain it.
That's okay. I'll forgive you, Shemplu. I'm excited about this because I was a big Halo Wars fan. I enjoyed Halo Wars.
Yeah.
So having and being, vested in the Warhammer world of again the video game, I 100% would give this a shot. And in my mind, it's going to be a Halo Wars to me.
I mean, I'm fine with either or. I just want a good RTS to sink my teeth into again. I've tried a few here and there, and nothing has hooked me as they previously did in the 360 generation. But with that, I think we kind of went over all the games we personally wanted to highlight. So I wanted to ask you, what was your game of the show?
I would still have to go to again, and I know you read it, and it may not be, but it would have to be the Valor Mortis. It's either going to be Valor Mortis or the Chronos to me. Like they're the two that I am most excited about. But because I like the history, I have super high hopes for the Valor Mortis.
100%. I think Valor Mortis is definitely shooting to the top of my list of anticipation. For me, I think my game of the show had to have been Lego Batman, The Legacy of the Dark Knight. You mash Lego, you mash Batman, you give it an Arkham style gameplay. I'm all over it. And I think I'm going to keep that as my game of the show because it's something new that we didn't know about. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. I'm super excited for that. I'm super excited for Chronos, but I'm going to keep Lego Batman as my big surprise that I am just super excited for. And
Lego's a given, though. Lego's always a given to me.
Yeah. And chat, once again, let me know if you had any, if you watched the show, had any games of the show, or wanted to highlight any games that you thought looked super cool. But with that, we are at the end of our Gamescom review special. Thank you so much for tuning in on a Wednesday. This isn't our usual time slot, but we are happy to do this. You never know. We might end up doing these things more often than not in the future as we see things that we feel are important to talk about as it happens to kind of get our opinions out there. As a reminder, we are back live again this upcoming Monday to talk about, has the industry forgotten about older gamers? We're going to be breaking that down. It's just going to be my dad and I going to be talking to him about his opinions, and you're going to hear all about them and what he feels the current games industry is like with difficulty and so on. Shemplu says, really looking forward to Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Fully agree. That I'm surprised that game's coming out, but it's being developed by the Chinese room, and they've most recently released Still Wakes the Deep. They have also released Amnesia and Gone Esther, so they have a pretty good pedigree behind them. I'm a little trepidatious. The game's been in development hell for so long, but I'm excited to see it come out. And Shemplu also says Long Gone looks really interesting. I don't remember that one as much. I will definitely look it up and see what that game is like. But with that, once again, we will see you guys next Monday, and you can also find us here on our socials. Remember, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, we are at Active Reload Gaming. Twitter and Twitch, we are at Active Rel Gaming. And please remember to join our Discord. You can scan the QR code right here. We have a pretty good community going on. We are very chatty in there. We like to talk to everyone. So yeah, do you have any closing words, Dad? If not, we can get out of here.
Nope. I just appreciate everybody showing up. And again, subscribe, helps us out tremendously.
100%. And with that, we will see you guys on Monday. See you all later.